Welcome to the Mom Founders Table. Pull up a chair and join me every week as I become your thought partner and help you lead to create change. I'm your host, Kelsey Kenry, entrepreneur, millionaire mom of three, and strategic business coach for established mom entrepreneurs. Every week, you will get tactical guidance to apply to your business, leadership, and life that will help you further your true success while also being invited into a new way of thinking and being that creates true freedom. I'm here to call you out and call you up, so take a seat and let's begin. When was the last time you held yourself back from saying something you really wanted to say? Whether that was with a client, a team member, somebody in your family. I know as women, we have so much fear around being assertive, coming off as bitchy, and never have I ever had a client who didn't hold their tongue in some sort of way because they were afraid of the ripple effect that it would cause. So today we're talking all about how you can actually be assertive without it being confrontational, without it turning into a big conflict, and without really just pissing people off and creating a bunch of drama that we don't need, because we know that the biggest reason why we're not saying what we really want to say is because we don't want to create that ripple effect in the wrong direction. So I first want to start by sharing a really personal story. And I've only told this story a couple of times, so you probably haven't heard it. And one of the things that I am most proud of in my life is my marriage. And that is because I grew up with two parents who married and remarried multiple times. Both of my parents have been married and remarried, I think 3, 4, 5 times. And so I never had the example of what a healthy marriage looked like. And so in my dating era, I didn't really know what I was trying to replicate. And this is why in my 10 years of self-destruction, I really just was focused on getting somebody to pay attention to me, using my body for attention and all of the things that I did during those 10 years, because I didn't know what love was. And so one of the reasons I feel most proud of my marriage is because together, Eric and I have had to rewrite and develop what a healthy marriage looks like. Luckily, he comes from parents that are still married, and there's issues in either way, right? Nobody is perfect. And so we both come with our set of here's our experience. They're drastically different. And we have come together and built something that I think is as close to perfect as perfect can get. But it wasn't always that way. And if I'm being really honest, I have known since the first time that I met Eric that he was my person. I have known that he is my best friend. I just knew in my heart and soul that he was the person that I was supposed to spend my life with. But because of my history, because of his history, because of our life experiences, we came in with two drastically different dynamics. And essentially what this created is we had to learn how to communicate. We had to learn how to unpack what our experiences were and how they were affecting us now. We had to learn how to love and respect each other. And I think that we have been able to build what we have because it was built on a foundation of truly friendship and respect. We are beyond loyal to each other, and we have never, ever in our 14 years of being together said something unkind, or we've never name called, we've never yelled at each other. And I think that foundational respect was because we knew that we're going to be in this forever. And so we don't want to say anything that we're going to regret. So that being said, without sharing too much of Eric's story that's not mine to share, Eric is a former pro wrestler. He has had a lot of concussions. And I think between the combination of the way that he was raised and the actual trauma to his brain, he has struggled with depression. And his struggles with depression as somebody who is a fixer, really, I wanted to make him feel better. I wanted the person that I love to be happy. And so when he would struggle with depression, I would take it on as my responsibility to try to change that. Obviously, that is a dynamic that we had to change and work on. And I'm happy to say that we are on the other side of that now. But for years, it was something that really bothered me. And I felt extremely guilty because I'm like, how can you be mad at him for being sad? And in the same breath, I knew the kind of life and partnership I wanted to be in, and I didn't want to settle for less than that. And so I share this backstory because after adding 3 kids and running multiple businesses together, there was a point where everything kind of came to a head, and I started for the first time in our marriage thinking about us not being together. And I had to make the choice internally of choosing myself. And there's no easy way to approach a conversation that could potentially create separation with somebody that you love. And so I avoided the conversation and I started to shut down. And then one night we were having a conversation and my resentment had built up. And I just basically told him that I had told him that he needed to figure things out and what the issues were, or I was going to be all done. And looking back on that moment, it was not a good moment. It was not my best communication. For as much as I teach and preach about effective communication, which some of we'll talk about here today, it was not my best moment in how I expressed it. And I was scared. I was scared of what was going to happen. And in the same breath, it was the moment that changed everything for our marriage. And we took a foundation that was solid and we were able to finally build on it because I spoke up about what I wanted for me and for us. And he said, "You're right." And he chose to take accountability and he chose to change and he chose to go on, this personal development journey. And, now years later, we're in the place that we are because of that. And so I share this obviously very vulnerable truth with you to let you know that what you really want is probably on the other side of a conversation that you need to have. And being assertive, being direct, being honest is the thing that we avoid. And it's the thing that we need the most because I was holding in so much that caused me to explode. And tell me if you've been here before, right? To where you hold so much resentment and then you snap, but probably it's something that's maybe not even related. And it doesn't have to be that way. I want you to know that when you speak up, it changes everything. And even in the moment, if it feels like it's not changed for the better, it will make sense down the road. So let's talk about assertiveness and directness and the truth about being assertive. Assertiveness and being direct is not about controlling somebody else. Being direct is clear and good leadership. It's about stating clearly what your needs are, what your boundaries are, and what your expectations are. Your boundaries, your needs, and your expectations, we oftentimes just assume that people should know these things, but they are not you. And nobody is a mind reader. The only thing that's going to happen if you aren't clearly saying, this is what I want, this is how I want it, this is what I expect from this relationship or this scenario or this job role, whatever it is, the only thing that happens when we don't state these things is resentment. Because this is where we find ourselves in those situations with our team where we're like, why are they not doing it how I want them to do it? Why aren't they pulling their weight? Why is this not happening the way that I want it to happen? Why does this keep happening this way? So being direct in what your needs, expectations, and boundaries are is actually providing clarity for the person on the other side. You're essentially handing them a roadmap. You're handing them a guidebook of directions on here's how to do your job. Here's how to communicate with me. Here's how I best function. Here's how I best receive. Here's what I expect this to look like when I delegate it to you. So being direct and saying, I need this by this day, by this time, and I need it to look like this is not you being bitchy. It's you being clear. It's you helping the person on the other side so they know exactly what to do. I mentioned earlier how the foundation of my marriage and all of my relationships and one of my biggest values is respect. And the reason why assertiveness creates respect is because when you are being direct and you're being assertive and you're being clear, people know where you stand. When people don't know where you stand, it is incredibly hard to try to understand you. It's incredibly hard to try to be close to you. And it's damn sure incredibly hard to try to do things the way that you want them. So directness actually creates a level of respect to where it's like, I know that Kelsey does not like this. I know that when she gives me this task, she wants it done like this. There's a level of respect. And when we feel like we're not being respected, when we feel like our values are being compromised, when we feel like that somebody is not hearing us or understanding us, that's where the resentment starts to rise. And so we can get ahead of that by being assertive and understanding that people respect what you are willing to communicate with them. People respect what you are willing to communicate with them. And honestly, they don't always have to like it, which is another point that we will get to. But you can't be so concerned with everybody liking you that you keep doing things that continue to play the role of you not liking and treating yourself well, because that's going to create more resentment. And that's the cycle that people get stuck in. Another thing I want you to remember is there is a drastic difference between being assertive, being direct, being clear, whatever your words are, and being aggressive. Recognize that aggression and anger is a top level emotion. What I mean by top level is that there are many things that come before that. There's a twinge. One of my clients, we were talking about her pattern of essentially getting to the point of explosion. And so we used a scenario that she had recently been through, and I'm like, let's work backwards from that. So here was your moment of explosion. Now, before that, what were the red flags that you ignored? And we were able to, in talking about that, because her pattern has been essentially to not communicate when she sees things because she will minimize what those things are. Oh, that's not that big of a deal. She'll fix them herself. She'll ignore it. And then it creates the explosion. And so we were able to trace back all of the things that she had minimized. And we were able to trace it all the way back to that first twinge that she felt. We were able to actually identify what she felt in her body, which we can easily become disconnected from because we shut it down so many times. And essentially it was like the coming on of a headache. It was heat in her body. And I'm like, that's it. That's the moment where you recognize something's off here. I need to say something. And literally from that point, it was like 4 more things happened before she exploded. And so that's what I mean about the different levels. Assertiveness is not anger. You're not coming at somebody and yelling at somebody. If you're doing that, then you're actually not being assertive, because if you're coming at somebody with aggression, you're never going to have a productive conversation from that place, right? You're going to go in loops. They're going to get defensive. Their walls are going to go up. That's just communication 101. You cannot come to somebody in a place of anger. Assertiveness is coming at that first twinge, at that first, hey, I just got this task that you had done for me. Here's actually how I would like it done. Instead of, just got this task, it's done wrong. Now I have to redo it. Now I have to change my schedule. Why don't they know what they're doing? Spiral, 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 anger, right? So assertiveness and being direct is not being aggressive. It is so funny. Like, we as women are the worst people pleasers. We're so afraid of how things are going to be received. So assertiveness is going to create clarity, and clarity creates connection and understanding. When people understand us, We feel seen and we feel heard. It works better for both parties. Aggression is going to be more about demanding compliance, and that's going to push people away. That's going to make people, that's like authoritative parenting. If you think that yelling at your kids is going to get them to do what you want them to do, it might in that moment, but what it creates for the long term in your relationship with your child is a divide. They don't feel safe with you. And this goes for every relationship. So if you're coming at your team, if you're coming at your partner, if you're coming at people at that top level emotion, you're creating more distance when the only thing that we want as people is connection. So assertiveness, you have a kind but direct tone. Your intention is to provide clarity. And you follow through by making sure they have everything that they need to do things in the way that you expect them to. And the real reason that women feel being assertive, as I've referenced numerous times here, is that we are innately people pleasers. We want everything around us to be put in its place, happy, whole. Everybody around us needs to be having a good time. We don't want to disrupt that, because if we disrupt that, then we're creating conflict, and we don't want to feel that conflict in our bodies because we don't want to deal with it. Which is funny, because with people pleasing tendencies, the idea in our heads, or the story that we tell ourselves, is that we're not going to disrupt something for somebody else. The truth of that is we're actually not wanting to disrupt anything for ourselves. We're not wanting to feel the emotions that surround conflict. And so we avoid it. We avoid the hard conversations. We think that it'll just work itself out. We think that maybe it was a one-time thing, whatever stories we tell ourselves, and then it happens again, or it happens in a different way or a different area. And this is all about our fear of how somebody may perceive us, what they may or may not think about us. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, it's not even true, right? Like, we're afraid that if we give feedback on something that a team member has done, that we're going to make them feel bad, and then they're going to be mad at us. When the reality of that is, if we're clear with them on how to do it better, then they deliver better, then we recognize them, then we thank them, and they feel empowered. So how can you shift the story in your head that you're telling yourself around whatever you're avoiding, and really see the truth of the fear of being too much is the same thing that keeps us stuck. The fear of being too direct, or the fear of hurting somebody's feelings, keeps us stuck where we are and not getting what we want. When you get what you want in the ways that you want it, you are happier. And if you're happier, you are much different to the people surrounding you. And speaking of the people surrounding you, my last point for today is all about how being assertive creates stronger relationships. Because I was able to speak up and use my voice and take a stand for what I really wanted, I have created the best, incredible, most loving, caring, and understanding partnership and marriage that is truly, like, we don't even have to pretend. It's not like, it is better offline than it is online at this point. And that, like, the way that we are able to navigate conversations, the closeness that we feel, the safety, the security, has all been born from not avoiding things that we both needed to say. And so our desire as people is to feel heard, to feel seen, and to feel understood. Our one desire is human connection, and being assertive creates connection. It allows you to build stronger relationships with people who truly understand you and know what you want and can help you. Clear communication brings people closer, and it allows everyone to win, which is the opposite of what we tell ourselves when we think we need to be assertive and we're afraid to, right? So let's talk a little bit about how to be assertive. There is a right time to communicate directly, especially if it's associated with something that is a dislike or a problem or something that needs to be solved. It is after you have emotionally regulated. So we're never communicating from a place of reactivity. I always tell my clients, the first thing that you want to do if something happens that comes in that is a fire your first job is not to fire off another Slack message. It is to regulate. It is to step away from your desk or step away from your phone or wherever the physical location is that is triggering. And it is to bring yourself back down, to breathe, to ground, to anchor back into your body. Because if you start to speak from a place of heightened emotions, it's never going to turn out the way that you want it to. So there's a space between, right? Something happens that we recognize we need to speak up about. A lot of times when that thing happens, we're usually angry about it or upset about it at first. The first thing that we need to do is regulate, right? But then it's before you start to procrastinate and minimize, right? Because typically we go through, depending on your process right now, something will happen that upsets you. You will either be reactive to that and then feel guilt around how you expressed yourself and then try to backtrack. And or something happens, you shut down, right? You don't deal with it. You're mad. You internalize that anger. Maybe you talk about it with your partner. And then that next step is you start to tell yourself stories in your head about how it's not that big of a deal and you don't really need to say anything and you'll just fix it or whatever it is. So then you go into like avoidance and stories. The idea here is to find the space between the initial stimulus that creates a spike in your emotions and before you start to minimize and tell yourself it's not a big deal. If you get to the point of telling yourself that it's not a big deal, you're invalidating your emotions, which is another process that we have to walk through in terms of going back and reparenting yourself. But that's completely different topic, still related here. But in terms of like when to actually speak up, it's going to be when you have regulated yourself to where you're not feeling that top level anger and you are dysregulated, but before you start to put it off. I will have clients that are like, oh, I'll just make a list and then we'll have a meeting. And I'm like, okay, but let's be timely about that, right? Because the further away we get from it, the more things are going to start to stack up and the more the person on the other side is not even sure about what's going on. Second thing in how to be assertive is you want to focus on sharing your experience and your feelings. If you come into any sort of conversation with you're doing this and you did that, walls are going to go up and ears are going to be closed off. And so you want to go into it with, this is what I saw, this is what I experienced, this is what I received, this is how it made me feel, this is how I'm feeling about it. This is how we bridge the gap of understanding. And so with us focusing on ourselves and sharing our experience, that's going to keep their walls down because we're essentially saying, yeah, I'm feeling really upset. I received this template and I noticed that it wasn't in the branding colors. And I was under the impression that the branding colors were in speak about you is the key here. You want to speak about you, your feelings, your experience, what you saw, what you went through, and share that with them so that they are clear on, oh, this is what that action created. And you also want to take any responsibility in that time for anything that you enabled or your part in it. Of like, I received this, I wasn't clear on XYZ. I should have been more clear because when I received this was my experience or my feelings. And then the third thing is you want to be really direct in what your asks and your expectations are. So sometimes when we finally do speak up about something, we share a lot about our emotions. We talk about, this is what I experienced. This is what it's causing for me. This is really, what I've gone through and what it's creating for the business. And then we forget to say, here's exactly what I need you to change. And here's when I need it by. So we want to always wrap up these conversations with your expectations and what your asks are and any action steps that are associated. So that way, once again, we're providing clarity to them on expectations. So we're saying, here's my experience. Here's how I feel about it. Here's how I want it done. Here's when I want it done by, this is why, right? So we're taking them through that full scope. So this is what creates a productive conversation. If we're only unleashing like our emotions and our experience, and we're saying like, okay, this was a dumpster fire and this is what I experienced, we're not giving them a place to go from there. And that's what we want to provide. So making sure that you're very direct in your ask and your expectations from there. So I hope that today you feel more empowered to be assertive. I hope that you have an understanding that being assertive and direct is actually going to bring people closer. It's going to create more of what you want in your life and your business. It's going to strengthen your relationships with your team, with your family, and it's going to allow you to feel proud of yourself. And it's going to take so much energy that you're carrying and emotion that you are shouldering the load for and allow you to express that in a better way. If you are in a position right now where you are feeling frustrated with your team, if you have been asking yourself, why are things not working the way that I want them to? Why are these deliverables? Why don't they look like this? Why, when I'm out of the office, are there fires? If you are struggling with your team and getting them to run the business the way that you want them to, I want to invite you to download my team management bundle. This is completely free to you. And it's really powerful because I not only give you the templates that I use for me and all of my clients, from our quarterly performance reviews, monthly meeting agendas, and all sorts of other great templates, but there's actually private audios attached to how to communicate during those things. And so the purpose of this team management bundle is actually to create clarity across the team, make the team function better, and obviously alleviate stress and overwhelm from your shoulders. So if you are struggling with your team, communicating with your team, having the right assets to provide clarity across your team, you can go in the show notes today and grab that team management bundle for free. And then make sure you check your email for all of those assets, because they will come to you one per day, I believe over 5 days, with that attached audio walking you through how to use it and how to communicate during those processes. So I'm here to empower you to use your voice. And I am so excited about everything that is coming, the future of how I am helping you grow and scale your businesses. And thank you for listening and being here today. Grab that team management bundle in the show notes, and I will see you guys next week.